Hello everybody. So I'm going to do a second part of how the whole thing got to where it is right now in terms of Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Now I wish I could do this in one little 10-minute video, but it seems as if there's too much to go through. So the first part, what I got through was the beginning of both of their careers up to meeting and starting a relationship. Up to 2012, they officially announced their relationship. Now of course they got married in 2015, and there's a wide speculation that they actually started seeing each other in 2009 while they were with some other people. They of course met in 2009 on the set of The Rum Diary. So the question is, if there was so much nastiness going on, whether it was Amber Heard abusing Johnny Depp as seemed to be proven, or Johnny Depp abusing Amber Heard as she claimed, or both, as does exist in some relationships, there can be mutual abuse. Either way, why did they get married? And to answer this, we have to look at their previous relationships. Johnny Depp had never had any abuse in any of his previous relationships, certainly none that we know of. And we went into this. The worst that they could say in the trial was that one of his, wasn't even an ex, somebody he had a one-night stand with, said that she didn't like him anymore. And that's as bad as it got. And certainly his 12-year marriage, at least 9 years of which he seems to have been faithful, 9 years until he met Amber Heard. Who knows if he really was faithful, who knows, I don't know. But there doesn't seem to have been any violence. She stood by him. Nobody else has suggested that he ever was. In fact, Kate Moss, who he had a relationship with, the supermodel Kate Moss, said actually that claim that he pushed her down the stairs was actually the opposite, and he supported her. And she of course had no reason to lie. Amber Heard's relationship, on the other hand, well, we only really know about one, and that's with Tasha Van Ree, and she'd hit Tasha Van Ree at least once in public, in the airport, and she went to jail over it for a single night. And we don't know what else she did with other relationships, but it seems as if she was probably at the very least hitting her sister Whitney Henriquez, as she is now. And you know, were there any others? We don't know. So why would either of them get married if there was violence? And it seems as if the violence was before they got married. So it didn't suddenly start. It's not like, oh, it was all roses and then 2015 they got married and suddenly it all went terrible. That's not what happened. It had started from the start. And in fact, it may have even started from 2009, before they were officially a couple. So why persist with it? Why continue on with a relationship if you are in a violent relationship? And to answer that question, we really do have to look at their history to understand their future. You look at the past to understand the future. This is what historians do. And if you look at Amber Heard's history, you'd say, well, she's always in violent relationships. This is normal for her. She abuses people. That's just what happens. And if you look at it, it's not just her romantic relationships, it's also her family, at least her sister, probably her parents as well. And then we look at some of her friends. I mean, you have friends of hers abandoning her all over the place, and she had to essentially pay to have friends that stood by her. Io Tillett, Raquel Pennington and Josh Drew were all getting money from Amber Heard in order to pretend to be her friends. And as soon as they stopped getting the money, they stopped being her friend. And in fact, whether they really ever were is up for speculation. All over the place we have people who were friends with her who no longer want to have anything to do with her. And it's not just a recent thing, it's not just because of this trial. All through her life, she'd had people that after a while just got sick of her. And that's not the case with Johnny Depp. With Johnny Depp, if they parted ways, they'd still be friends. They'd still keep continuing on. And that suggests that, well, Amber Heard burns people. Now, that in itself doesn't prove that she abused all of them. There could be a number of other reasons. It could be that she has high standards for them. Could be they don't understand her. Could be, you know, just a coincidence. But it does sort of suggest that perhaps she just has violent, abusive relationships with all manner of people who then support her because they think, oh, how hardly done by are you? And then only for her to turn on them after a while. So that doesn't seem to be the case for Johnny Depp. So why did Johnny Depp put up with it? And the simple answer to this, as we explained in court, was that Johnny Depp had an abusive mother. His mother abused both him and his sister. His sister testified to that. And he was simply used to that. And even though in his relationships he'd completely avoided it, when he got to Amber Heard, he sort of thought of her in relation to his mother, and sort of thinking of her, well, he can fix her, as he fixed his mother. And his mother, yes, she was abusive, but he tried to make it work with his mother. And you'd often see him pictured with his mother, and you'd be like, why are you pictured with your mother when she was so abusive? But if he managed to work out a way as an adult to stop that abuse and to calm her down, then maybe he thought he could do the same thing for Amber Heard. And I think in a lot of ways it was a challenge, and he'd had so many successful relationships with so much peace that he didn't want to have one that was violent. And I think he felt like, well, he'd had a marriage that had lasted 12 years and it ended, and he wanted this one to be a marriage as well, so that it could be that long-term loving relationship. Another hint is the fact that during their relationship, or during their marriage as well, he tried to get a prenup in, and Amber Heard wouldn't. She refused to sign anything, she refused to agree to things, had a lot of delaying tactics. It's also notable to note that when he finally left her, or when she put the restraining order out there, he was overseas at the time that the protective order came in. But so that therefore means, well, why did she need it if she's overseas? Of course, it was a temporary trip. He was coming back, and he'd already announced he was going to leave her, but his mother had just died. His mother died, and he said there was a bit of a realisation that he couldn't fix Amber, that she, just like he could never fix his mother, that when you're abusive like that, you stay abusive. So he decided to end it, and she decided to do all of this because she was afraid that she would lose her money. He promised to give her lots of money anyway, and that he would not kick her out of his apartment that he owned, and she would be taken care of in the divorce, and he promised that, and he did do that. He fulfilled those promises, but she wanted more. And in fact, Amber Heard had, throughout their marriage, sort of got a backup plan going, because she's used to doing that, because she knows that people abandon her, and she has that fear of abandonment because that's what often happens. So she had prepared to make sure that he couldn't leave her. And it wasn't just about the money, that was a part of it, but it was also because she wanted to keep him in her life. So when she was telling all these stories to different people about, oh, he abuses her and all that, without any evidence whatsoever, this was aimed at, if he did ever leave her, she would have that ammunition. Now, you might think that's completely preposterous, but we just have to remember that there are people out there who, when they leave somebody, will hit themselves. That has happened on a lot of occasions. They hit themselves, they often smash their face into car doors, regular doors, cupboards, fall on the floor on purpose, just so that they can pretend that there was domestic violence. Amber Heard didn't even do that. All she did was lie to her psychiatrist. Very easy to do. You can just ask any psychiatrist or psychologist, have they ever been lied to by patients? They'll say, yeah, all the time. Particularly if there's a financial reward at the end of it, or any kind of reward. So that's the bit of a problem there. So we know all this happened, and we know that we got up to that point where he left her, or was planning to at least. His mother died, he said he was sick of her. That's documented, and he was going to leave her. He was going away with his band, the Hollywood Vampires, over to Europe. When he came back in a month, he was going to divorce her, and he told her that. And rather than wait to be divorced and have the potential of losing everything, she started this to make sure that he stayed together, that he stayed with her. Anyway, that's my part 2. Let me know what you think in the comments. Bye bye now.